The modern nation of India derives its English name from the Indus River in modern-day Pakistan. It was around this river valley where the oldest Indian civilization was formed. Through archaeological records, we know that they traded with the world's oldest cities in Sumeria. There, they witnessed the world's oldest metropolises, where a labyrinth of busy, cramped, winding streets filled the city in a chaotic fashion. They bore witness to merchants tracking their wares in the oldest of written languages, fantastic marketplaces. They saw the amazing benefits of the wheel in transportation, construction, and warfare. Fantastic temples, skilled metalworkers, and mighty kings. When they returned home from the long trek, one thing we know definitely made an impression on them. The place stank. Sewage ran open onto the streets, and sanitation was severely lacking by their standards. Then, something spectacular happened. They became history's first great master plumbers. Using the power of the Indus River, they created covered sewers, indoor wells in every home, private restrooms, and with millions of identical bricks, they created spacious homes on a grid-like pattern with large ventilated granaries in every city. Then the population skyrocketed, and in an area larger than Mesopotamia or ancient Egypt, their civilization flourished. With more than 2,000 cities and towns, the Indus Valley civilization became the most populous on Earth. Their merchant fleets created a massive trade network along the Persian Gulf coast, to Mesopotamia, Arabia, and back. They would develop their own intricate and unique written language, which has never been deciphered, and bears no similarity to any other known written language. The names of their kings, gods, wars, great triumphs and failures, and even their great cities' names have faded away. Around 1500 BC, a series of unfortunate events began that would doom this civilization. First, the climate. Many of the tributaries of the Indus River, which their cities depended on, drastically changed course, flooding some cities and turning others into derelict husks that slowly were covered by the sands of time. And if surviving the weather was not enough, then came the Aryans. They too had suffered from climatic change. Their river valley homes around what is today Turkmenistan had dried up, and they were seeking greener pastures for their large herds of cattle and horses. They were among the first to domesticate the horse and use the increased mobility to transplant their people onto the Iranian plateau, and then they crossed the Suleiman and Hindu Kush mountain ranges into the Indus Valley. There, the vestiges of the already decimated Indus Valley civilization were wiped from all human knowledge or recollection, until their remains were excavated in the early 20th century. The Aryans founded several kingdoms along the Ganges River. We know their names and mythological histories because their epics and language have survived till today, and is the basis for many of today's Indian languages. Throughout the period known as the Vedic Age, these Aryan kingdoms would constantly wage war on each other. During this time, the Hindu faith developed alongside the Mahabharata, the longest poem ever written. Some have compared this work to the impact of the Bible, Quran, and the epics of Homer. A social class or caste system would also develop during the Vedic Age. At the top were the Brahmin or priests. Below them were the Kshatriyas, the ruling warrior and kingly class. Then came the Visaiyas, the skilled workers, merchants, and minor officials. The Sudras were the lowest class and consisted of unskilled workers. People were expected to eat with and marry within their own caste. Breaking the caste system's rules meant that one was a pariah, or outcast or untouchable. Society's worst and least desirable jobs were left for this class, such as street cleaning and sewage cleaning. In 518 BC, the Persian Achaemenid Empire's armies would cross the Hindu Kush mountains, as their Aryan cousins had done 1,000 years before, and subjugated the myriad of principalities that dotted the western Indus Valley. In the east arose a powerful king, Mahapadmananda, in the region of Magadha. He was a son of a king, but he was considered of low birth because of his mother, who was of the Sudras caste. His rise to power was opposed by his brothers who were of full royal blood. This, however, did not hold him back, as he had them eliminated. Mahapadmananda would subjugate kingdom after kingdom, creating a true empire in his own name. He amassed a gigantic army of over 200,000 men, thousands of elephants, and chariots. After Mahapadmananda's death, his son would succeed him to the throne. It was during his reign that Alexander of Macedon conquered the Achaemenid Persian Empire, crossed the Hindu Kush, defeated their vassals and hostile kingdoms in the region. These two empires, however, would not last. Alexander would die young, and the Nanda Empire would soon be overthrown by Chandragupta. Surviving sources written long after his death vary widely on whether he was born a commoner or of regal descent. Also, whether he overthrew the Nanda Empire easily or through a long war of conquest. According to one account, he met Alexander the Great and started his consolidation in the Punjab region, there taking the Greek satrapies and moving eastward. After his death, his son maintained his empire, but it would be his grandson, Ashoka, who would be the most famous king of the Mauryan dynasty. Ashoka was violent and power-hungry as a young man, and according to one source, he killed 99 of his brothers to secure the throne. He would expand his empire east into what is today Myanmar, and west to the borders of modern-day Iran and into Afghanistan. He would expand into the south, and in the 8th year of his reign, he would wage war on the small but powerful state of Kalinga. Their large army would not be enough to defend their kingdom, and in a short war, over 100,000 would die on both sides. And then something strange happened. He felt bad. Ashoka converted to Buddhism and promoted peace, respect, and harmony within society. He erected pillars stating his vision for a different type of society all over his kingdom. He ruled out the rest of his 36-year reign in peace and prosperity. However, only 50 years after his death, his empire would fragment into violent chaos once again. Buddhism, which was prevalent in Ashoka's reign, would gradually fade away in India, but thrived in the Far East. Over the centuries, many kingdoms would rise and fall in the Indian subcontinent. The Gupta Empire was considered a golden age for art, architecture, and scholarly pursuits. But none would come close to Ashoka's, until the Mughal Empire. These invaders from the north were descendants of the Mongols. They would propagate Islam in India and rule there for almost 300 years. During the reign of Akbar the Great, he tripled the size and wealth of the Mughal Empire. He was a vicious conqueror, but a just ruler. He would abolish the jizya, the infidel tax on non-Muslims, and elevated non-Muslims to high civil and military positions throughout his kingdom. He built libraries and schools across his realm for both Muslims and Hindus. The Ibadat Khana was a magnificent building that he erected as a meeting house for religious scholars from different religious groups to conduct discussions and peaceful debates on religious beliefs. There could be found Muslims, Hindus, Jains, Christians, and Buddhists discussing the finer points of human existence. After Akbar's death, the Mughal Empire would continue to expand. However, over the generations, the empire gradually became less tolerant, and the empire was weakened by tension between the majority Hindu population and the Muslim ruling class. Also, the increased complacency and corruption that the ruling class became accustomed to after so many years of prosperity made them vulnerable. This was the situation that the Dutch, Portuguese, French, and English all sought to exploit. The British East India Company, with their vast private armies, eventually winning out, taking control of southern India first, and then gradually extending their influence over the whole subcontinent through extortion, bribery, and military engagements. The Mughal Empire was finally brought to an end in the Indian Rebellion of 1857. This was an insurrection against the British East India Company that functioned as a sovereign power on behalf of the British Crown. Someone had the not-so-bright idea to issue ammunition that had been wrapped in pig's fat to the company's troops. This offended both Hindus and Muslims alike, and led to a series of unfortunate events that ended in a defeated rebellion and over 800,000 dead. After the rebellion, Britain would directly rule India. In World War I, over 1 million Indian troops would fight the German Empire overseas. In World War II, the British took volunteers, and by 1945 had raised 2.5 million men, the largest all-volunteer force in history. After the war, in 1947, India obtained its independence from Great Britain by an act of parliament. The two regions with the highest density Islamic populations were partitioned off, forming West and East Pakistan. In the months that followed the partition, approximately 15 million people migrated from their ancestral homelands to the nation whose majority shared their same religion. The chaotic mass migration saw ever-escalating and retaliatory acts of violence committed against Hindus and Muslims alike, and a series of tragic massacres. Over 1 million people would die during this period of resettlement. Tensions are still high between these two nuclear-armed neighbors. India is now the world's largest democracy. Recently, they have elected a religious minority, and a member of a lower caste as prime ministers. India is the third largest economy in the world and is rapidly growing, and is expected to exceed China in population in the near future. This has been Epimetheus. Like and subscribe if you like the content, and hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button if you would like to get updates every time I make a new video. I would love to hear what you have to think down in the comments. It was more than 5,000 years of history in one video, and I'd love to hear what you think is an interesting part of Indian history that I did not include. And if you would like to become a patron of this channel for starting at just $1 a month, or for $3 a month, you could be like Alberto, Balaz, Ivan, Jody, or Morpheus, and you'll get your name at the end of all my videos, and you can help me so I can pay all my bills and keep making videos for you guys. Thank you very much. Bye.